everyone, this is Debbie from Project 39 Mini Albums and welcome to my channel. Today I am going to do a tutorial on how I made a mini album using this Honeybee paper collection. I picked this up from, it's a Carta Bella paper, Carta Bella Echo Parker sister companies. So I picked up the paper, the coordinating solids, the titles and phrases, and also the chipboard accents. I also used the 6x6 paper pad, which is not pictured. Now I did recently make another 6.5 by 8.5. I just like that size for several reasons that I'll tell you as we go through the video. So make sure if you're purchasing the guide, the cutting guide on my coffee shop, that you look for the Honeybee mini album tutorial cutting guide, just because it's different than the other 6.5 by 8.5 album that I've made. As I go through, I'm going to be referencing this cutting guide, and I'll tell you right now, you do not need to purchase it. You can just write measurements down and go from that, although I will tell you it is a very slight fee, but it's up to you. I loved this paper. I loved the vintagey feel to it, and I don't know, it just made me happy. I'll talk a little bit first about the tools and supplies that I used, and that way you can gather everything together. For the paper, I'm going into my drawers where I keep everything. You may know that I live and travel and craft in my RV. I keep everything really close to me. So, and I'm sorry about the light. Since I am in my RV, I can't drill holes into the ceiling. That would be disastrous. So here is the paper I used. It's the 65-pound weight Recollections paper that I get from Michael's. Now, I only get this because it's readily available for me. No, I don't only get it because of that. I like this paper. It doesn't crack when I fold it. I've been using it for 10 years maybe, and I'm quite happy with it. They changed the formula maybe 2-3 years ago, and I didn't like it, and I stopped using it, but they seem to have changed it back. It sort of had that construction paper quality. Now, sometimes I will use a heavier weight cardstock. I'm reaching and getting it. This is 65-pound weight. Sometimes for flaps, I will use the 110-pound weight. And I use that just in a couple of places. If you don't have this, it is fine just to use the 65. Once you've added the paper, the Carta Bella paper, that is thick as it is, and that will help make it a little sturdier. So you don't need to go right out and get 110-pound if you don't have it. So as far as other tools and supplies, I do use for adhesive the Designer Dries Clear Adhesive from the Art Glitter Company. It is November when I'm doing this, and I have already purchased my glue to take me through to the spring because you don't want to have it ship in when it's below freezing or below 40 degrees, I think. So I take that and I put it into a smaller container. The reason I have this fabric washi tape on the front of it is because it just gets grubby looking from me picking it up and whatever. I use the fine tip on it. I think this is a 4-ounce container. I don't know what size it is, and I can't tell you because it's covered up. But I refill this just because it's easier for me to hold and do. I use the fine tip. I use the pin on it when I am not using it, but I will keep it in a little jar, a little glass jar that I wet some paper towel, put it in the bottom, and keep that damp. And then you don't need the pin on it while you're crafting. The tip will stay wet. You need about 2-3 layers of wet paper towel. I haven't yet done that for my crafting session. Now, as far as other adhesive, I use rolls of double-sided permanent adhesive from scrapbook.com. I use these to put on the back of my chipboard when I am adding my chipboard cover to the paper. Now you notice I do have some Suk Wang that I'll use that also. I just needed a little bit to cover this. A ½ inch would have been better than, I think that's 3/8. But in any case, permanent double-sided adhesive, whatever brand you use, I'm sure will be fine. And you don't even need that. If you want to just use a lot of glue, then you can use that. So that is how I adhere my covers to the chipboard. I'll use a scoreboard. This is an old, do I even have the, I don't think I do, an old Martha Stewart scoreboard, but you know what, it works. Any scoreboard that you use is fine. I do like one that is at least 12 inches. I will use the small ones for cards, but for mini albums, I like the 12-inch ones. Paper trimmer. You guys are going to laugh at this. I mean, it's almost an antique. This is a Fiskars rotary trimmer. It actually was my mom's, who has passed, so it's one of the few things that I have from her. So even though this is not available, I still use it. So whatever you use as a paper trimmer. And besides that one, I mean, Fiskars trimmers are the best. I also use the smaller one for smaller cuts. It's just easier to grab, and if I'm doing a tutorial, I can show you what it is I'm doing. So I use those two paper trimmers, both. What else do I use? Oh, so this is in my drawer. I'm going to do a video on this probably in January, but these are the other tools that I use. I use long bladed scissors. I think these are like 9 inches. It doesn't have to be that big. These I got from scrapbook.com. Here's another Fiskars scissors. I like using these for fussy cutting, and they're easy to grab. An eraser if I need it. Here's my pencil. Here's my craft knife. Oh no, pen goes here. Craft knife goes here. And then for scoring, I use this old Cricut scoring tool. It goes in Cricut machines, but I like it because it's got a metal tip and it never wears out. And I've used this probably for a good 6-7 years. And then for my bone folder, I use Dress My Craft, or is it Dress Your Craft? Number 2 bone folder, nonstick bone folder. I like it because it's got a good bevel at this end and a nice rounded point here. You can use it this way. You can use it here. You can use it. I mean, it's just a nice bone folder. There's one a little bit smaller, but I like this one for my fat, chunky hands. A couple other things I have on here. So I keep in my little bag of tricks. This is what you get the fine point tips for the glue in. Move this out of the way. I keep this filled with water, and if my glue gets stuck, then usually there's something stuck in the tip. If I try to use the pin and it doesn't clear it out, then I take it and stick that in here, and I usually have another one ready to go, and I will just soak it in here, and then by the time I need it, every couple of days, I will clean out my little water thing and use a pipe cleaner to clean the tips. This is like an old-fashioned pipe cleaner. This works really the best, but this isn't bad. And then the other thing I like to use is an old mascara brush. These are great at cleaning out the tips for, it's an instant lift brow pencil. It's great for cleaning out those fine point tips. You can actually go to the Dollar Tree and find this with the makeup in it, but you know, if you don't use the makeup, just use this. This is fabulous. So anyhow, those are a couple of things that I keep. And then the last thing that I use, these don't come this way from the manufacturer, but I use my magnets from Total Element. They are thinner than the regular ones that you see, and they are super strong. I'll mostly use, I think this is a 1/2 inch. Does it say? Yeah, these are 1/2 inch. I mostly use the, what size is this one? I mostly use the 3/8, but I might also use the 5/16 for smaller things like little flaps. And then for the covers, if I have a cover or the waterfall, I'll use the 1/2 inch. So they are available at Total Element. It is listed in the description box. So I think that is it as far as supplies. If there's anything else, I'll mention it along the way. There is a file in my Ko-fi shop on where I purchased these. It's a free file, so if you want to download it, just so you know where I get them, the exact specifications, and of course there are affiliate links, which gives me a teeny tiny little bit of kickback if you make a purchase, and it doesn't increase your price. All right, last thing is, to start, I have my cutting guide. Now, you don't want to copy this because this is my working copy and it's not correct yet. But what I do with this when I am making an album is I will cut it down. So let's cut it off here. And so I'll start cutting from the bottom and then layer them on top. And then I will cut the paper that I need to cut. And then what I'll do is I'll paper clip this. So that says inside back cover. And this has the measurements and the scoring of the inside back cover. So I'll put them in order. So inside back cover is on the bottom. And then I'll add everything else on top. So I'll cut everything and then I'll go through and score everything. Now, since I'm doing a video, I'm going to score it as I put it together for you. But that's just a hint on how you can use the cutting guide. So when you print it out, make 2 copies. Don't print it back and front. Just put it on a single sheet of paper and you can cut it apart, and that will work to help you keep things together. So without any further ado, I'm going to cut the chipboard and we're going to start making our mini album. Okay, I have cut down my chipboard. I have 2 pieces that are 6.5 by 8.5, 1 piece that's 2.5 by 8.5. This is graphics chipboard. It is, I believe, 0.056 or 0.057 thickness. I buy it by the, I think it's a 25 pack in the 8.5 by 11 and 25 pack of the 12 by 12. I use both of it. Obviously, for this one, the 8.5 by 11 would make more sense. So I've already put my double-sided permanent adhesive on the back, and I have burnished it really well. There is a little bit of the chipboard showing. It's not a big deal. I'll add a little bit of glue. But the important thing is that you burnish this really well because you don't want any air bubbles. You want it to stick. You want it to do its job. So as you can see, I used the scrapbook.com and the Suk Wang, both I had in my stash. So I'm going to put that aside for 1 second, and we're going to grab the next piece, or 2 pieces, that are 2 8.5 by 11 65-pound weight cardstock. So what I'm going to do with this is take one of them and I will add 1/4 inch double-sided permanent adhesive to one of the long edges. I am just going to rip it off. I don't need to get my scissors or any tools. It's not going to hurt anything if there is an edge. So again, I'm going to burnish that real well. I'll peel off the backing, and then I will adhere one piece to the other. I'm just going to go right over the edge of that 1/4 inch tape and burnish. So now this is going to be, you're not going to have too much room for this. So we'll put this down and you'll see at the edge, I'm only going to have about 3/4 of an inch, maybe even 1/2 inch at the edge. It's okay, we will make it work. If you had a long piece, I also like to get 12 by 24 sheets of cardstock, but I don't have any on hand. You could add a third piece if you wanted to, but I guess I don't like to have the seam anywhere but the middle. So I guess I could have cut a 6-inch piece and have a seam here and seam here. I mean, whatever you want to do. This will work for me. I will, however, figure out exactly where the center is. So that was 8.5. So I'm going to do it at 8 3/8. That's the center mark approximately. So I want to make sure the center of this will be approximately there. I also use a T-square. I think I picked this up at an office supply store. And again, I will make sure I find the center of this. So it's 1 1/4. And I know that I want that to be approximately where the center of my paper is. Approximately. Normally I don't fuss with it so much, but because I only have 1/2 inch, I don't want to mess it up. What happens if you mess it up? You know what? Just leave the cardstock on there. Put another piece of double-sided adhesive. It'll be that much thicker. Does that make sense to you? If you mess it up, just go with it. All right, so I am going to take my T-square. I know I want about 1 1/4 inches from the bottom of my cardstock to the bottom of my spine piece. I'm going to move this till I get it right. And that's pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. Just so you can see. There it is. I'll burnish this on the other side in a little bit once I get the other pieces. Okay, now I'm taking my 1/4 inch score tape again, and I'm going to I'm butting it up right against that chipboard. And I'll do the same with the top piece. Butt it up right to the chipboard. And then take some time and get a good burnish on your double-sided adhesive. All right, I'm going to peel off the backing here. And then I'm going to take my covers and put them on. So I'll peel off this backing. Have a little piece here. And then I'll add a little bit of glue to where that is. And then what I want to do, I'm going to turn it this way so I can see what I'm doing, is overlap the glue that's on our chipboard to the glue, the 1/4 inch. We want about 3/16 of an inch showing. How much is that? It's a little more than 1/8, a little less than 1/4. So I'm going to overlap this on that 1/4. I've just got the edge touching. It's still up. So if I had to, I could pull it up. I want to make sure this is parallel. So once I eyeball it and I like it, I will push this down. Again, there's not much room showing here. So we'll do the same with this other piece. Another thing this boom folder does is it helps peel off the backing of the adhesive. And I'm going to do the same with this. Add a little glue where there wasn't any. If you don't, it's no big deal. And then that, and then there we go. Okay, now I'm going to turn this upside down. And usually I'm working on my my mat, and since I am not working on my mat, I'm going to put this down because I'm working on paper. This is paper, and I don't want this to stick. So I'm going to put it down there. I guess like that so it doesn't stick. But I'm going to burnish. Another one, put these down. Again, I don't want it to stick because we've got this is exposed and I don't want that to stick. So what I'm going to do is take my bone folder and find where the edge of the chipboard is and go right against the edge of the chipboard. There's not much here, but that's okay. All right, I'll turn that over. And then I'm going to grab my scissors and I'm going to cut about 1/8 of an inch from the corner of my chipboard. I'm just going to go straight across my cardstock. If you need to err on the side of leaving too much, more than 1/8 of an inch, rather than leaving too little. Of course, if you do make a mistake, you can just take one of these corners and stick it over there and take a Sharpie and Sharpie it, and nobody will ever know. Nobody will never know. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, and I usually don't use extra double-sided adhesive, but here we want to make sure we get a good stick because we only have a little bit. I'm going to add some to the edge, the short edge of our covers. So there's one there and one there. And I know some people like to add double-sided adhesive on all of the perimeter of your chipboard as well as on your cardstock. I don't feel the need to do that. I just needed to add some because we have such a little bit to grab. But if you want to do that, that's okay. No big deal. Doesn't hurt anything. So I'm going to take my glue and go along the edge. I'm making a mess today. Go along the edge of the chipboard. I'm going to do both along sides. What that does is it moistens the fibers and helps the fibers bend where we need it to bend. Then we'll go ahead and go along the perimeter. Let me see if I can do this so you can see. Along the outside, and I'll zigzag. You don't need a heck of a lot of glue. You just need enough to help it stick. All right, I'm going to take my bone folder. I'm going to go along to the edge and push this. You'll see some glue coming out because this is at a right angle. I mean, it makes like an L. And then I'm going to go along the very edge, and I'll pull it with my fingers and then start burnishing it with the edge of my bone folder. Had to fight with it here. There's a little bit of a ripple, but it's no big deal. All right, I'll go along the edge here, around the perimeter, zigzag, and use my bone folder to pull it up. And then I'm going to go right at the edge, like where the top corner of our chipboard is. So I bend that with my bone folder, and then I burnish. All right, now I'm going to take my pointed edge of my bone folder and go right where this little, it's a little triangle, and just push it in. Okay, so we have double-sided adhesive there, but let's go ahead and run a little bead of glue along the edge. I'll go ahead and do this side too. Help moisten the fibers. And then I'm just going to go around the very top edge because we've got that double-sided adhesive there, so it's going to stick. And then very carefully I'm going to fold that up, push this right up against the chipboard, and then I'm going to bend it down and I got some glue on my bone folder, so I just wipe it off with my fingers. And we'll do the same with here. So I'll go just as close to the top as I can. I can't draw a straight line with a pencil or with glue. But again, we've got that double-sided permanent adhesive there. We've got some on the edge of the chipboard. Go back and forth several times. Then rotate my bone folder so I can get to the edge of the chipboard. And then when I feel like it's got a good start, I'll fold it all over. Burnish real well. And there we go. All right, another thing I like to do is take my bone folder and go along the edge, burnish down that glue that we put at the edge, and make a nice, crisp, clean edge to our mini album. So there we go. Now I will take this rounded point of my bone folder. Now if you don't have a bone folder like this, you can take the thinner kind, the old-fashioned kind, and go in this little crevice or channel, another word, channel. So I'm going to push. What we're doing is the top piece has some double-sided permanent adhesive, and so does the bottom. So what we're doing is making sure those two meet. I'll fold my book as we go. And there we go with that one. And I'll do the same with this. Just go back and forth several times. And then fold it, burnish it. And there we have our cover. All right, we are going to do the hinge. So the hinge is 11 by 7 7/8. I make it 7 7/8 so it'll fit into our page, which is going to be 8 inches. It just makes it easier. All right, so we're going to have the 11 inside at the top of the scoreboard, and we're going to start our scoring at 1.5, then at 2, 2.5, then 2 7/8. So what we're going to have is 6 sets of basically 6 sets of hinges with a 3/8 gusset in between. Now I caution you just to score with a steady hand, and don't push too hard. You don't want to rip the paper, and push hard enough that it does make an indentation. So now we've got those. We're going to continue with the next set of hinges. Our hinges are going to be 1/2 inch. So score at 3 3/8, and then 3 7/8, and then 4 1/4, 4 3/4, 5 1/4, 5 5/8. Make sure when you're holding your paper, you're up against the side and the top of the scoreboard so your scores don't become wonky. Now we will do 6 1/8, 6 5/8, 7, 7.5, 8, 8 3/8, 8 7/8, 9 3/8, and that is all we need to do. So you'll notice that we have hinge, hinge, gusset, hinge, hinge, gusset, and all the way. So you'll have 6 sets of the 2 1/2-inch pieces. I'm going to take this and turn it over, and I am going to fold and burnish in between those 2 1/2-inch pieces. Once I figure out what I did with my bone folder. Okay, so we have a 1/2-inch piece, another 1/2-inch piece. We're going to fold in between those. Make sure your edges are lined up and burnish. We will skip the next score line, and fold. Make sure your edges are lined up. Skip, skip, fold. Skip, skip, fold, and so on for a couple more times till we get all of those, the centers of our hinge pairs scored. So one more. Okay, now I'm going to have that bumpy side facing down, and so you can see slightly where the score lines are that we've burnished. I'm going to hold this in my hand. I'm going to turn this so you can see, and I'm going to pull towards me so that that first hinge that we burnished, it's going to go straight up to the ceiling. I'm going to grab it between my fingers and burnish. So now we've got it, so we've got the hinge is being trained to go straight up. We'll do the same, pull it towards you and finger burnish. I'm going to fold it back and forth and burnish it. Now, if you don't like the touching of the paper, some people have tactile issues, just go ahead and use your bone folder. It's no big deal. But we'll go ahead and fold and burnish. Try not to scratch it with your fingernails. I don't have very long fingernails, so I don't have to worry about it. All right, so now we're getting the paper trained even more, but what we're going to do is pull this towards us so all of those gussets stay remaining on our surface, but the hinges are straight up. And then once I feel like it's all the way it needs to be, all those hinges are facing up and the gussets are on the surface, I'm going to burnish. Then I'll push them all away from me. Again, make sure those gussets are flat on your surface and burnish. So we really trained them to do what we want, but now just to make sure they stay there, we're going to add the glue. So I'm going to grab the glue, going to turn this over so all those indentations are facing down. I mean, like all those V notches, they're all down. And I'll sort of open this up a little bit and add glue. Go back and forth, zigzag the length of it. You're going to start it at 1/2 inch from the edge and end it at 1/2 inch from the edge. And then take a bead of glue and go towards the top. I'm about 1/8 inch away just because I can't draw a straight line and can't get it any closer. I'm going to take some of these and put down because I've got paper and I don't want to make it messy. So now I will take this and pinch and distribute that glue and have our hinge glued. I've got glue on my fingers. Before I do anything, I'm going to wipe that off because I do not want glue to go on the rest of my hinges. All right, turn it over and we'll do the next one. So again, start from 1/4 inch, zigzag, a bead of glue at the top, push that together. It wasn't quite as messy, so we're better. All right, zigzag. Now it depends on the glue that you use. You don't need much of this art glitter glue. It dries fairly quickly. I know some other glues don't dry as quickly, so you'll just have to hold it and make sure that glue is distributed. Just a little bit more. It's no big deal. All right, we have 2 more to do. And 1 more to do. Couldn't get the very end there, but that's okay. And finger burnish. And now that we're done with that, now I'm going to burnish it with my bone folder. Just, it helps train our paper. I'll fold these gussets away, or not gussets, hinges away from me. And then I'll have it straight up, and there we are. There is our hinge system, and now we're ready to add it to the book. So in the meantime, our cover has dried. Before I glue the hinge down, I'm going to work this a little bit, make sure our book will fold. And we're good. Okay. All right, now I'm going to just lay this down on my surface. I'm just at this point trying to figure out where the center of it is. I want it centered on here. I want the same distance from the bottom of the page to the bottom of the hinge system, and the top of the hinge to the top of the page. So it's about 1/4 of an inch. And then the same for the side one. I want about 1/4 of an inch from where this channel is to that first hinge, and from the last hinge to that channel. And I want it even all around. Now, I generally don't like to draw a pencil line. I'll open that just to see and make sure we're good. Just to eyeball it. Now that I know where it's going to go, I have an idea where it looks. Now, you could, if you wanted to, draw a line here so you know to match it up there, but I generally eyeball it the second time. So now I've got all those hinges facing down. I'm holding it lightly in my hand, and I am going to start from about 1/4 of an inch. I was a little too close there. Add a bead of glue in that little channel in between those 2 hinges, right in between the gussets. It's not perfect. It doesn't have to be, but generally your glue tip will follow that channel. And now I'm going to zigzag. Again, stay about 1/4 of an inch away from the top and the bottom, or the sides, I suppose, the way we're holding it. Now, you don't need a heck of a lot of glue, but if there's any areas where you feel like it didn't go on great, just add a little more glue. Okay, now I'm holding it in my hand. I'm hovering over the top. I know where that 1/4 of an inch piece is, and I'm just going to put it down. Make sure it is centered where I want it to be, and we're good. I'm a little off of my line. I guess I'll move it. So there, that looks good to me. Now, there are 6 hinges, so that means there's 5 gussets. So I'm going to start at the center one. So I'm going to take my forefinger and go from the top of the gusset down to the center, from the bottom of the gusset up to the center. What that's doing is distributing the glue and getting exactly where we want it to be. Then I will move my hinge, that's the first one, over to the left, pull it all the way in. Sometimes you'll feel the whole hinge system on the left move, and I'll go again from the top to the middle, from the bottom to the middle. Now I'll move that one, move that first one, and we're going at that gusset to the right of that first gusset, that center one. Go from the top, go from the bottom, and we've distributed. Now I'm moving this over, and we're doing this last gusset, and I'm distributing the glue. Then I'll do this final one, and we've got all the gussets down. I'm going to take my bone folder. Now our wings are still not glued, but the gussets are down. And I'm going to burnish. I'm going to start gently at first. And then move all these over to the side and burnish again. Okay, now we've got this wing area. We've got chipboard, we've got the channel, we've got the back cover. I'm going to take some glue and zigzag about 1/4 of an inch from the top, zigzag on that chipboard to the bottom. I'm going to put some in the channel where our cardstock is, but not in the channel where you can see that shininess of that double-sided adhesive. We can leave that alone because that's going to adhere all by itself. Add glue onto the back cover, and then I'll go around the perimeter, the outside of this wing. Add a little bit of glue there. It's going to stay. I'm not too worried about it. Then I'm going to take my bone folder and pull the glue down and then push the glue up, and then take that curved edge of the bone folder and go in that channel. I'm going to be very patient, go back and forth several times, every time pushing a little bit more. If glue seeps out, clean it up. But once the glue touches that wing piece, it's going to help move it a little bit more. So now I'm down probably as far as the paper will stretch. So I will take my cover, pull it up, and let that double-sided adhesive match up with this wing piece and adhere. And then I'll just go back and forth on this wing piece and make sure that is adhered. So this side is down. I'm going to flip this over and do this side. So we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to go back and forth on the chipboard. I didn't mean to go in that channel, but it's not going to be the worst thing in the world. Oops, did it again. Go in that channel a little, in that channel a little. Don't get too close to the edge. And then zigzag on the, what could be the front cover, but it doesn't matter because it's pretty even. And then go around the perimeter. And there we go. Then I'll fold this down, burnish from the top to the middle, from the bottom to the middle. Make sure that glue is distributed. I'm gonna go in this channel. I don't know, somebody want to count how many times I go in and burnish it? Then I'll lift this up. Whoops. And burnish here. Okay. Now I did get a little bit of the tip in here, but it's no big deal. We will just burnish that a little more. Go gently here because I see that glue is bubbling up a little bit. Not bubbling, it just isn't smooth, so I want to make sure it dries smooth. Once the glue dries, there's a little bit of waviness. Once the glue dries, you won't see that. Then I'll fold these hinges to one side, fold them to the other side, and that is good. So we are good. We are done with our hinges, and we are going to let these dry while we work on our base pages. All right, so now we're going to make the base pages. Sometimes I'll do pages and have folds in them, have a larger piece and cut it down, and folds are already there after we've scored. But in this case, we're doing our base pages really very plain, and it sort of gives you a blank chalkboard to create with. So feel free to use this for other mini albums that you guys design. So to do 6 pages, you'll need 12 pieces that are 6 by 8.5. What I will do is put the 8.5 side at the top and score each one at 1/2 inch. I'm just going to do one set of pages right now. I've already done the other 5 pages. So that's all you need to do with that. I'll go ahead and grab some scissors and we'll miter these corners. So I'll put my scissors in that little channel from the score line. It doesn't work so much when you turn it upside down, but we just take off a little wedge of paper. And then I'll take my bone folder and burnish these folds. Now there's 2 ways of doing this. You can have the fold on the outside of the page or on the inside of the page. Now this is going to be a hidden pocket page where you can have an insert and have more room for photos. So I don't always like to have the tabs on the inside because it could get hung up when you're putting something in. If you put the tabs on the outside, you're going to cover it with paper. So that's how I choose to do it today. I'm going to make sure that the sides are even. I'm holding it together. I'll pull this tab open and zigzag the glue and burnish, and then I'll flip that over and do the same with the other side. You don't need that much glue to hold it in. Again, you'll cover this with paper and that will help secure it as well. So there we go. There is our base page, which is actually going to be a tube. Now, through the magic of videoing, I already have my other 5 pages done. So I'm going to grab my book. Before I put the pages in, I will go ahead and burnish one more time just to make sure these pages move back and forth, or these hinges. All right, now I'm going to start at the back of the book, and here is my back hinge. Before I put a page in, I'm going to dry fit it to make sure it will go in easy, which it should, because we're 1/8 of an inch. The page is 1/8 of an inch bigger than the hinge. But if for some reason you find it doesn't go in easy, all you have to do is take off a little corner of the hinge and it will help put it in easier. I'm not going to do that for the rest of it because it'll be fine. All right, I'm zigzagging my glue to the top half of the hinge. I'm working on the back hinge now, but I'm going to flip it over. Don't push it down because you don't want glue all over the place. And I will zigzag it one more time. I'm not going right to the bottom with the glue. So now I put the page in and it hits the bottom because it goes in very easily. I don't want it to be exactly lined up with the spine of the book. So I'm going to take it and pull it to the right ever so slightly. So it's about 1/8 of an inch. I noticed that this is parallel on the bottom, that's parallel on the top, and that's parallel there. So we've got a good straight adhesion. I will go ahead and burnish. And then I'll turn this and burnish. So the first page is ultra important because now we're going to line everything up based on that first page. I don't need to cut off the corner because I know that these were all the same size, so they're all going to fit, but it doesn't hurt to dry fit it if you're not sure. Oops. I did not mean to get glue there. And now I'll go ahead and put this in. I'll take my eraser and after that's all dry and just get off any glue residue. It helps a little bit. All right, so we'll burnish there. Oops. And burnish here. And I'll burnish again after I get everything in. All right, now I'm going to be a little more careful so I don't get this in the gussets. And while you don't need a lot of glue, this is an integral part of the book. You don't want to be skimpy, and you don't want to be chintzy and not have your book stay together. So again, I'm about 1/8 of an inch from the base of that hinge. I'll line it up with the bottom of the last page and burnish. And burnish. And so we'll continue until we get all of the pages in the book. Now there are other ways of attaching pages. You don't always need to do a hinge. Look up on my channel how to do an L page. Yeah, there are just different ways of attaching pages to a book. You could do like a traveler's notebook style where you put it in via some elastic. You could sew it in like a junk journal style. I tend to do this just because I've gotten used to doing it. Some people find hinges intimidating, and honestly, I used to when I first was doing it. I cried over them. But I don't anymore. I go with the flow. Most times they come out perfectly fine, and if they don't, there is no harm in doing another one. I have even done that recently, just for whatever reason. Things aren't lined up on the scoreboard is generally a reason why hinges might come out a little wonky. I might have been going too fast. Sometimes your paper is not perfectly straight, and then that affects it on your scoreboard. So if I have, like this one was a 7 7/8 by 11, I cut off a little bit on the top of the page and then a little bit on the bottom of the page, just trying to make sure it is straight. The page is more perfectly rectangular as opposed to being wonky. All right, now that I've got all the pages in, I'm going to go ahead and burnish. So I'll open up the book and just take the edge of my bone folder and burnish real well. It also helps the hinges learn to move back and forth. And the true measure is if it's straight when you open it up to the front, and it is. And I am very proud of this book. So there we go. There we have our mini album with our base pages in. So our next step is to add elements to the pages. A lot of people will add the elements to the pages, then put the pages in. I add the elements as I go. I like to see how they interact with each other. For instance, I might not want a pocket with a circle closure here and then something that will open here and have elements right here that will mess up with those. So that's why I like to do it a page at a time. Now we are going to put in the elements and then decorate, and that probably will be in a separate video. So we're going to go through fairly quickly putting in the elements because we've got everything cut and labeled. So let me set up the camera a little better and then we'll get started. All right, so the first feature isn't even in the book, it's on the cover. I don't always do this, but doing something a little different. So I have a cover flap. I'm using a 110-pound cardstock. If you don't have it, no big deal, use 65-pound. I just took an 11-inch piece, cut it at 7, and then I have a 4-inch piece left. So with the 7-inch side at the top of the scoreboard, I'm going to score it at 5/8. I just want to have a little extra room for adhesion and as well a little less room on the flap. I just want the flap to be a little smaller. So rather than cut it smaller, we're just scoring at 5/8. And then with the 4-inch side at the top, score at 1/2 inch for that 4 by 8.5 inch piece. Now sometimes this heavyweight cardstock it's not difficult to score, but I like to score it on both sides just because it helps to bend it a little bit easier. And we will miter on our miter a little wedge off from the score line up on both pieces. And then I will fold and burnish on the score lines. All right, let's pull in the book. So we're going to put the larger piece, the 7 by 8.5, over to the right side. So I'm putting it right before it starts to bend over. So it's going to be really on top of that chipboard, not on the, just on top of the chipboard. So I'm going to add some glue. And I toyed with the idea of adding a little piece of double-sided permanent adhesive. And you could if you want to, because sometimes this heavyweight cardstock takes a little bit longer to adhere. So I'm making sure it's lined up at the bottom and at the top. I guess that's one of the benefits of using liquid adhesive, because we have a little chance to move it. I'll go ahead and burnish, and then open this and burnish. And you see it doesn't go all the way to the edge. That's the benefit of scoring it at the 5/8 of an inch. And then this one I'm going to add some glue to and add to the right side of the page. And then I'll burnish inside here. And then what we will do is add a magnet to it before it's all said and done. So that is the front cover of the book. All right, there are 3 pieces of cardstock for the front of page 1. We're not going to do anything to the back of the inside front cover. So for this, you'll need 3 pieces. One that is 8 by 8, one that is 8.5 by 5, and for a photo mat, 3 3/4 by 6. Let's start with the 8 by 8. We're going to put it, it doesn't matter which 8-inch side at the top, but we're going to score it at 1/2 inch and at 5 1/4. All right, this 8.5 by 5 with the 8.5 side at the top, score it 1/2 inch and score it 4.5. Rotate so that smaller tab is up at the top of the scoreboard and score it 1/2 inch. We're going to do a little cutting here, not a lot. So we have an X created by those 2 score lines. I'm going to miter up to that where they intersect. Take off this little bottom piece, just like that. And I'm going to cut a wedge here. So just like that, right up to that score line. All right, then let's fold and burnish. So we'll fold and burnish that. And then this tab that's on the right-hand side, fold up and burnish. Now I want you to add glue to the tab on the side and this tab that's folded up. And we're gonna, I guess we could have burnished, but we're gonna fold this over and burnish. So what we'll have is a pocket. Now we've got this little tab at the bottom. I'm going to fold and burnish on that tab. And then we will pull in the book. And I'm going to add glue to that tab. And add this to the bottom page. I'm doing it to the bottom right-hand side, right up in the corner. So it's just a little pocket, and then this other little piece will go in the pocket. And then this is where you can add a magnet if you want one of those smaller magnets. That's what I use those for when I don't want, it's not going to go through, it'll go through several thicknesses, but not a lot. So there's that. Now we've got this 8 by 8 piece. Let's miter on these tabs. And fold and burnish on our score lines. So we have that one, and we have this one. Add glue to the tab, and this is going to go onto the left-hand side of the page. And when I tell you to put it on the page, if it's on with a hinge, put it on the page, not on the hinge. So we'll put it on the base page here, lining it up with the bottom. If you need to, you can move this out of the way. So again, it's lined up on the base page, not on the hinge. So this will go like that. So this will open like that. It gives you extra room for journaling or whatever, and then this will close. Now when I add a magnet, I probably will put a magnet here. So actually I take it back. I'll make it a little bit stronger because the magnet will go here. I'll put one here and one there. So 3 magnets to hold this one page together. So that is what we're going to do for the front of page 1. The back of page 1, you will need 2 pieces of cardstock that are 5.5 by 8. And again, I get these measurements because these are what was left over from when we cut down the base pages. I try not to waste anything. Anyhow, with the 5.5 side at the top of the scoreboard, score at 1/2 and score at 3.5. Do the same with both pieces. And then we will, let's move our scoreboards. And we are going to miter. So let's miter from the tab, the small tab first. So miter from that score line up to cut just a little wedge off. Now we're going to do the same with this larger piece. It should be about 2 inches. So from that score line, cut up to the edge of the page and get a bigger wedge. And let's fold and burnish on our score lines. We're going to fold them both up. So with this little piece, this 2-inch tab, we're going to add some glue. You don't need a heck of a lot because we're going to cover it with decorative paper and that will help adhere it. And then just burnish it. So what we're doing is we're making this piece a little bit stronger by folding it over. Now do the same with the other one. Okay, let's pull in the book. And we're going to adhere this to the page. What we're going to be doing is having that centerfold, so we have the small tab on the outside, so one on the right, one on the left. And we're going to line it up with the side and butt them up against each other and adhere the other one to the side of the page next to the hinge. I'm going to do the hinge side first because we don't want it to go too far into the book. So add glue to the little tab And again, put it on the page, not the hinge. It's really important to get this lined up straight because the other one, again, has got a butt up right next to it. So there we go with that. So we'll add glue to the tab for the one on the left side of the page. It's important that you just use liquid adhesive to give yourself a little bit of movement to it, just to make sure it butts up. So I'm going to start by lining it up at the center of the page, and then I will push that down. Now I've already sized it, so I know it's going to fit on the page really well. So I'll go ahead and burnish. Now we're going to have a closure on this by having a cut apart on the top with 2 magnets, or we could glue it on one side and put a magnet on the other. But that is the back of page 1. Front of page 2. 3 pieces that are all the same size. They are all 5 by 5.5. So for all 3 of these, with the 5.5 inch sides, scored 1/2 inch. 1, 2, 3. All right. We can miter all 3 of those. Miter and miter. All right, let's fold and burnish on our score lines also. 1, 2, 3. All right. So now one of these is going to attach to the book. So I'll have the tab on the bottom. One of these is going to attach to that one. So in this case, I'm just going to add some glue to the inside of the tab. So I'll put it here and squeeze it and burnish. So what that does is it gives us a long piece, and I suppose I could have just made it long, but I was again using 5-inch pieces. Now this one is going to go on this side, but we're going to want this to be closed to adhere it. So I've got it folded. It makes like an L. I'm going to add glue to the inside tab. So sometimes I'll do that because that way it's straight against the edge of the page. And in this case, I want to make sure it's lined up with both of these. So I'll put that there and burnish. You can see I have the tab of the other one there. So this will go up, this will go to the side. And now we'll add this to the front of page 2. And again, I'm putting it in the corner. I feel like I'm being a little repetitive, but you could put it in the middle if you wanted to. I'm just following the previous design. So it's your book. You can do it how you want. It won't affect the outcome if you do it. Now, in the boho book that I did round the corners. I haven't decided if I'm going to do that yet, so I'm just going to leave it for now. I think I'll add a little paper clip though until I get magnets in there, just so it doesn't go all over the place. So that is the front of page 2. Now let's do the back of page 2. All right, the back of page 2, you will need 4 pieces, 2 sets of 2. You will need 2 pieces that are 5 inches by 3 and 2 pieces that are 5 by 8.5. I'm going to grab my scoreboard. So with the 5x3, with the 5-inch side at the top, score at 1/2 inch. And with the 5x8.5, with the 8.5 side at the top, score at 3/4 of an inch. I know, that's different. What? All right, let's go ahead and miter. So I'm going to cut a wedge. You really should start from the score line and cut up. I live dangerously sometimes and cut down. And the danger in that is you don't want to take off a chunk too much, because then it'll show at the page. In here I did it wrong again. I am a bad example. All right, we'll put that aside. Miter here. Do as I say, not as I do. How's that? Or live dangerously like I do. All right, let's fold and burnish on the score lines. So sometimes we'll have belly bands that are true belly bands, and they're attached on one side and go to the other. Sometimes we have belly bands that have magnets or closures on them. So that's what we're doing on this one. All right, first of all, we're going to take these 5x8.5 pieces and center one on the bottom of the page and one on the top. So just center it on the page. This will give you room for a portrait style photo, and just add another element. Now you could cut these down if you wanted to, if you didn't want it to be quite this, quite this big, but I thought it'd be fun. So match this up with the previous one. Oops, I'm 1/8 of an inch off. Go. All right, and with those open, I'm going to add the belly bands to the center of the page, one on the right side, one on the left side. So I'm just going to line it up as best I can. You could measure if you wanted to. And turn this completely upside down, and we're putting it on the page, not on the hinge, lining these up so it's perfectly straight. Okay, now we'll turn this so this will open like this. One will go up, one will come down, and these will close. And as I said, we're going to have a belly band closure, or a magnetic closure on this belly band. So there is that, and I will grab the clip and just keep everything together until I go through. What I usually do is go through and add magnets at the end before I start decorating. Okay, ready for the next one. The front of page 3. You'll need 2 pieces, one that's 5.5 by 8, one that is 3 by 8. With the 5.5 by 8 at the top of the scoreboard, score at 1/2 inch. And with the 3 by 8 at the top, with the 3-inch side at the top, score at 1/2 inch. We're gonna miter, fold, and burnish. Now, incidentally, I wanted to let you know you could use corner rounders, corner punches, or, you know, another way of adding different looks to the page is changing the style of your corners on this. This is it looks like a very blocky book, but once you decorate it, it changes the whole look of it. Oops, what's going on there? We are going to put the large piece on the left, the small piece on the right. It just gives you the option of having lots of bigger pictures on here. In fact, this whole book gives you the option of having bigger photos. Oops, I'm putting it on the page, not on the hinge. I say that 100 times to myself as I'm decorating. The other thing I try to do when I'm designing a book is, like, if one page has a horizontal feature, I try to have the next page with like a, there goes that again, a portrait feature, just so it goes back and forth. Now, I don't think I did that very well in the beginning of this book, but you can change that up with how you decorate it. All right, so there's that. Now, the way that I would do this is have a magnet here, or you could do it this way, so the larger piece is in the front and then the smaller's there. So that's all you need to do for the front of page 3. Now, you may have noticed I've gone through and very lightly put in 4F, 5F, 6F, just so I don't forget where I am in the book. Then yeah, we'll do the back of page 3 next. Back of page 3, you'll need a piece that's 6 by 7 and a piece that is 3.5 by 6. With the 3.5 side at the top of the scoreboard, score at 1/2 inch. With the 7-inch side at the top of the scoreboard, score at 1/2 inch. So this is a good example of how I'll do one style one page, another style the next. So fold and burnish on the score lines. I should miter. I'll do the right thing. All right, the larger piece is going to go at the bottom of the page. So just line it up with the bottom and the sides, just making sure it's all straight. Oops. And burnish. And with this other piece, I'm going to add it to the top of the page. And again, line up the sides. Again, this is a great opportunity to use a corner punch on there. So I'll probably use a magnet. I might use a decorative element here. The front of page 4, real simple, we're making a pocket. So you'll need a piece that's 7 by 3. With the 7-inch side at the top, we'll score at 1/2 inch and at 6.5. Rotate and score at 1/2 inch. So now that we have the pocket, we do need to miter. So we have an X created by those score lines. Just cut right through that X. And then we'll miter at the top. Okie dokie. Cute, cute, cute. Let's go ahead and fold and burnish on the score lines. And we'll add that to the bottom of page 4. So first I like to glue the bottom tab. Add it to the bottom of the page. And before I glue the side tabs, I'll grab a piece of You could use packing tape, you could use Scotch tape. I'm using packing tape because I have more of it. I'll put it right down. And burnish it on, so that way if you're adding something to the pocket and you don't have paper that goes all the way to the bottom, it will still slide in without any problems. So I'll add glue to the tabs on the side and then fold it and burnish it. And that is the front of page 4. All right, for the back of page 4, we need 2 pieces that are 5.5 by 4, with the 5.5 side at the top of the scoreboard. Score both at 1/2 inch. You know, I really think I'm going to do a decorative corner on here. I have a We Are punch, scallop. Well, let's just scallop. So I will do a scallop punch on those 2 corners opposite where our score line is. Fold and burnish on the score line. And let's get to the back of page 4. One will go on the top, on the left-hand side, and one will go on the right, on the bottom of the left-hand side. Yeah, they'll both go on the left-hand side. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Not very succinctly, but I try. Alrighty. Okay, and that's it for that. It just adds some interesting element to the page. All right, the front of page 5. The front of page 5. All right, follow me with this. We have 2 pieces, 7 by 3.5, and also 6 by 9. Let's work with this 7 by 3.5. With the 7-inch side at the top, score at 1/2 inch and at 6.5. Rotate and score 1/2 inch. Miter on the score lines. I'm going to miter here as well. And fold and burnish. Now, so the top tab is going to come sort of facing up. These 2 side tabs are going to go to the back. I'm turning it to the back so I can burnish it. All right, let's put that aside. Grab the scoreboard and the 6 by 9 piece with the 9-inch side at the top. Score at 3 and at 6. Fold and burnish. So I'm going to fold that piece on the right, I'm going to fold it in, and then this piece, turn it over, and then this piece on the right, fold it in. Now we can play around with the folds, but we've got sort of a Z shape. Is that Z? There we go. All right, so if you have it looking like a Z, this bottom piece, I'm going to turn it and put it flat against that other piece with this tab facing up. Underneath is where we've got those 2 side tabs facing down. I'm going to add glue to this tab. And make sure this is all even, and I'll fold that down and burnish. So we've got this Z piece and then this piece with the two side tabs. The tabs are facing down to the surface. Let's grab the book and add glue to these side tabs. And line that up with the bottom of the page and adhere. So it's just this interesting little piece that comes up, or it folds like this and then folds like this. Now this is not technically a pocket, although you could add glue to the bottom if you wanted a pocket. So you can make the decision of that once you add glue to it. So that is the back of page 5, and we are moving on to the front of page 5. We're moving on to the back of page 5, but I'm going to put all this together so it doesn't flap in the wind. The back of page 5, we have a piece that is 4.5 by 9. We're going to make a side loading pocket. So with the 9 inside at the top of the scoreboard, score at 1/2 inch and score at 8.5. Rotate, and with the 4.5 side at the top of the scoreboard, score at 1/2 inch. Miter across the X from our score lines, and let's miter these side tabs as well. All right, fold and burnish on our score lines. And add glue to that long tab. And this will go right next to the hinge. Make sure you line up the top and bottom of the page and burnish. And now we got some glue. Okay, so now this is where we can I was looking for my Scotch tape to show you can use just regular tape, and it's not in there. All right. So if you want, you can add some tape, to adhere to make sure that you can insert something in there, but add glue to these smaller tabs. Fold that over and burnish. All right, we're moving on. So that is a side loading pocket for the back of page 5. We're doing the front of page 6. The front of page 6 brings us to two pieces that are 4.5 by 4. With the 4.5 side at the top, score at 1/2 inch. So this is another one of those belly bands that attach. So I'll miter and fold and burnish on our score lines. And center this on the long side of the page, right in the middle. So one will go on the right, one will go on the left of the page. I'm going to put it on the page, not on the hinge. You tired of me saying that? Burnish on the score lines. match this up with that page, or with that piece, and burnish. So again, I'll do a magnet kind of thing, probably. So one more full page, and then the inside cover. All right, the back of page 6. You'll need a piece that's 5 by 5, a piece that's 5 by 6.5, and a piece that's 8 by 5. All right, the 5 by 5, put on the scoreboard, score it 1/2 inch, and did 4.5. The 5 by 6.5, score at 1/2 inch with the 6.5 side at the top. And the 8 by 5 with the 8-inch side at the top, score at 4. I'm not going to, the only piece I'm going to miter is the 6.5 inch piece. So miter on the bottom. Fold and burnish on our score lines. Let's do that. Fold and burnish. Fold and burnish. Okay, this piece that has the 2 score lines, the 5 by 5 piece, we're going to attach one to the bottom of the page. So center it on the bottom. So there should be about 1/2 inch showing on each side. Okay, now let's take that 5 by 6.5 and put that on the top of the page, centering it with 1/2 inch on each side. So I'm going to put it up here, line it up with this one. And burnish. Okay, so now this bottom piece, we have a tab at the top. Fold it facing you. So fold it down. With this 8-inch by 5, we're going to put it there at the bottom. So this tab is facing up. This piece is folded like that. We're going to attach it this way. So I'll lift up this tab, add glue to the underside. Fold it down. I want to make sure this is even. Fold it down. And then we have that. So you've got this piece that'll come up like this, and this flap that will come down. So you can close it all with a magnet there. So that is the back of page 6. The inside back cover. We're there. All right, we'll have a large flap. I actually use 110-pound cardstock because I was going through my scraps and that's what I had left, or I had that in my scraps. It's 6 3/8 by 8 with the 8-inch side at the top, score at 1/2 inch. Since I'm using 110, I'm going to flip it over, score at 1/2 inch again, and miter on our score lines. So why is it 6 3/8, not 6.5, which is the width of the book? Because I don't want it to get hung up when you close the book. I also liken my flaps over a pocket to round the corners with the largest corner rounder that I have. So that is what I'll do with that. I'm going to put that aside while I work on this piece. This is 65 pound. It's 7.5 by 4.5 with the 7.5 inch side at the top, score at 1/2 inch and at 7. Rotate, and with the 4.5 side at the top, we're going to score at 1/2 inch. Is this right? Yeah, 7.5. All right, cut across the score lines. that make an X. X marks the spot. And miter those score lines. Fold and burnish. I'm excited. We're at the end of the book. Well, not the total end, because now we get to decorate. I don't know about you, but I love to decorate, but that sometimes is it's not difficult. It challenges me. It's like Tetris. It's like Sudoku. It's like doing a puzzle. All right, so I'm going to center this on the page. There will be just a smidgen, 1/16 of an inch on each side. If I made this the same size as the back cover, when you close it, it might get hung up. I don't know. I just have a phobia of it getting hung up. I'm going to add glue to the bottom, the longer tab on this pocket. I'll lift up this flap, and I'm going to glue this to the bottom. Going to make sure I'm not anywhere near the crease where the cover and the hinge are put together. Then I'll go ahead and grab my handy dandy tape. And put it down. This is about a 5.5 inch piece, maybe even 5. Now, some people have asked why I don't cover this book. I'm going to cover it with decorative paper. If you want to cover it with cardstock, you can. I feel like it's a waste of cardstock, but you can, if it makes you feel good knowing that's underneath the cardstock. You can do that. So I will fold this up and burnish. And there's different ways of having a closure here. You could do a magnet. You could do 2 circle closures. You could do a circle closure and have an eyelet with string coming out of it. There's a couple of different things you could do there to close it. But speaking of closing it, there we go. Lots of stuff, but look, there's still lots of room in here. Of course, once we add the decorative paper, it's going to get a little chunkier, but there still is a lot of room. So I'm going to go through and add my magnets. And in the next video, I will talk about decorating the mini album. I'll probably do 2 in 2 different styles of this one. So stay tuned. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications so you know when those videos are ready. There will also be a playlist. And don't forget, there is the cutting guide in my coffee shop. It doesn't look all scribbly like this. That is my working copy, but once I get it all prettied up and add photos and descriptions and all sorts of fun things, it is available. So thank you again for watching. I really appreciate you joining me along to show your support. Hit that like button. That's really all you have to do. If you really want to show support, make a comment. Tell me what you're going to use this tutorial for. Are you going to use the Honeybee paper, or are you going to do something completely different? Thank you again. Have a fabulous day.